And it looks like we have our 3 board members. So we begin if we want.
Rhonda?
We're just confirming that we've got everyone unmuted. Hold on one moment. Thanks, Jamie.
Okay.
John, are you ready?
Okay. Madam Chair, we're ready.
Thank you very much. Hello, I'd like to bring this meeting to order. And I'd like to welcome the board and TAC to our Strategic Policy Advance Wednesday, October 21st, 2019. You know, I'd like to take a moment to speak to you about our year. You know, we are stronger and more nimble and more connected than we have ever been. And it is because of you and your hard work. And I'd just like to say thank you. So let's get on with the meeting. Could we have roll call and introductions, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board and TAC and staff. I will start with TAC members. Do we have anyone from the county? Lucinda Andriani is expected. Not see her signed in yet. Julie, oh, sorry. Okay. Just one moment, please. There we go. Okay. Worked. Okay. We had a couple people joining the meeting, so thank you for bearing with me. City of Flagstaff, Shane Dilly. I'll come back. City of Flagstaff Citizen Representative Kevin Parks.
Present.
Thank you. Coconino County Citizen Representative Jillian Thomas.
Present.
Thank you. NAU designee Erin Stom.
Hi, I'm here. Judy's out sick today. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, thank you for letting me know. CCC Kurt Stahl.
I'm here.
Thank you. Gail Jackson is excused from Econa. Metro Plan, Jeff Meilbeck.
I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we are expecting an ASNAU student, Clarice Green. I did not see that she was on yet. Clarice? And I'm going to go over to board members now. Coconino County Art Babbitt.
I am here, thank you.
Thank you. City of Flagstaff, Jim McCarthy.
Here.
Thank you. City of Flagstaff, Jamie Whelan.
Present.
Thank you. NAU, Dan Okoli.
Present.
And the NAU alternate, Josh Mayer.
Here.
Thank you. CCC, Steve Peru.
Present.
Thank you. And let me just double check if we have Coconino County TAC member Lucinda Andriani. And City of Flagstaff, Shane Dilly. Let's see, yeah. Looks like Shane is trying to join us, so one moment. Hello, Shane, are you with us?
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I had a previous meeting go over.
Thank you. And Madam, we can move on at this time.
Thank you very much, Rhonda. Appreciate it. And now we're on to agenda item number 3, safety minute. Sam?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This month's safety briefing is on distracted driving awareness. So October is Distracted Driving Awareness Month, and we'd like to encourage all Mountain Line staff to commit this month to driving distraction-free. To begin this safety briefing, I'd like to ask if anyone is driving. Nobody's driving? If you are, please hang up and call back when you're in a safe location. In a typical day, 700 people are injured in crashes directly linked to distracted driving. Driving distractions have joined alcohol and speeding as the leading factors in fatal and serious injury crashes. What is distracted driving? Distracted driving is any non-driving activity a person engages in that has potential to distract from the primary task of driving. How can you manage distractions? We should always follow established laws and company policies. Please take a moment this month to review Mountain Line's Distracted Driving Policy 4.24. Another major distraction while driving is the ringing of a phone or pinging of a text notification. These are temptations that urge us to pick up our phones. Avoid these temptations with the following tips. Turn off your phone before driving. Toss your phone into the trunk or glove box. Tell coworkers, family, and friends not to call or text when they know you are driving. Install an app on your phone that disables it while your vehicle is in motion. Change your voicemail greeting to tell people that you may be driving and you will call them back when you are parked. And start all conference calls or team meetings by asking if anyone is driving and have them call back when they are in a safe location. And welcome to the October board meeting.
Thank you, Sam. Excellent tips today. Let's move on to our discussion and action items. And Heather, would you present the annual report?
Yes. Madam Chair, may I note that Lucinda Andriani from Coconino County and Adam Shimoni from City of Flagstaff did just join us.
Thank you.
So good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board, and members of our Transit Advisory Committee. Lori, unfortunately, is out today, so I will be presenting on her behalf. This item is the fiscal year 2020 annual report. And just as a reminder, this report is a technical report as required by the Arizona Revised Statutes for IPTAs. So we'll include a synopsis of our performance measures as well as our financial data. summary of the year in review, a couple of things to focus on. We did maintain all of our programs as well as employees through the COVID pandemic. We also continue to focus on our Mountain Lift Taxi program, as that is a less expensive way for us to provide connectivity and transit services for our paratransit clients. We continued to reach service performance benchmarks for small transit intensive cities funding, and that did give us about 2/3 of our CARES Act award. We received a $17 million grant from the Federal Transit Administration for our new downtown connection center and 2 electric buses. And as mentioned before, we did receive CARES Act funding. We did receive the 7.2 from FTA, but we also received some smaller amounts from ADOT for our mobility management and van pool programs. Additionally, we replaced approximately 8 bus shelters with new shelters. We implemented 3 new residential pass programs, and one of those participants actually agreed to donate roughly $40,000 to Mountain Line, and we will use that to augment our discounted day pass program that is used by human service agencies. And big ones for us, we did initiate the planning process for both the Caspar intersection and our new downtown connection center. Our monthly ridership report does show that impact of COVID starting in March of 2020, where you see the blue and orange bar is much less than the darker gray line items from prior years. That is an estimated loss of about 80% of our ridership during that 4-month period. So here's that drop. Our actual ridership top line within the table, 2.5 million riders in fiscal year 19. Our goal or objective was 2.6, and we finished the year just under 2.1 million. And of course, with ridership that low, you'll see that reflected in our, we see that in our cost per passenger. Our passengers went down, but our costs stayed relatively flat. And that is because we used our staff throughout the pandemic to do other jobs. That's also reflected in our cost per service hour, which is higher than our budget and higher than last year. And again, we reduced less service hours, but we did not reduce our overall operating cost significantly. For Mountain Lift, or our paratransit program, we saw a similar decrease in demand on that system. We actually dropped from about 125 trips per day to about 20 to 25 trips per day in April. And we saw some small increases in May, June, and really have plateaued. We're operating about 1, maybe 1.5 runs per day based on the demand for service at this time. On the taxi program, for the city's taxi program, we did see a decrease in demand both in March and April, and an increase starting May and June. That program still continues to be very widely accepted. And again, we focus on making sure riders know this is available because it is much cheaper than sending a van. So looking at some of those data points, we did achieve 3.4 trips per hour in efficiency because we were able to reduce the number of vans out there to meet the demand. Our cost per hour, you can see, is quite high. And again, we've maintained the staff associated with these programs through the pandemic and used them differently. So they helped clean. They were also down at the Downtown Connection Center helping clean buses during the pandemic. The taxi program, the demand is not as high as it has been in prior years, and therefore the cost went up slightly. And I'll just remind you, our old program, 2018 and earlier, the voucher per trip subsidy was set. And in 2019, we changed that. So now someone could take a $300 taxi trip if they so choose to do so, using their entire subsidy in one trip. And that does impact our average cost per trip. I'll pause briefly to see if there's any questions on the City of Flagstaff before I move into Coconino County. Okay. Coconino County, we have 2 programs. We have the van pool program. And initially we did see a drop in the van pool program, but like the other programs, by the end of the fiscal year, we had seen demand start to increase again. And the taxi trips following that same trend. When we look at the costing of these programs, the performance measures that we have, we ended the year with our actual cost per trip for the county taxi program slightly higher than budgeted, but slightly lower than last year. And our total trips pretty flat with the prior year's number of trips, even though we are less than our goal. And the van pool program, the cost per trip is lower than it was in fiscal year 19, but higher than anticipated when we set the budget. And a lot of that is due to that reduced number of trips that we have in the program. So I'll pause again just to see if there's questions about the county programs before I move into financial summaries. So as we look at revenues, this graph, this pie chart, donut chart, does represent all of our revenues. Federal funds make up about 39% of overall funding, with the partners making up 47%. I will point out that this is all revenues, operating and capital, and NAU is counted in the NAPTA partners and not in the fares, even though for federal purposes, it is reported as a fare. When we look at our overall expenses, salaries and benefits still continue to be our highest portion of expenses. Admin is at 9% and capital at 16%. And if you recall, during the 2021 budget discussions, we did carry over a lot of our capital projects to future years. This is a breakdown of our expenses by program. Mountain Line is the orange pie. The bus is the orange piece of the pie, our largest program. Planning is our second largest, and planning does include a significant amount of our capital projects that are in design phases as well. Not included on the chart visually is the general fund, which was a significantly small amount of expenses. It was only 9,000 as compared to some of the others. And then the van pool and the county taxi program are also significantly small compared to other expenses, so their slices are tiny. So 100% of the expenses out of the general fund were related to administration. If I remember correctly, this is sponsorships and some travel expenses. For the city of Flagstaff, the graph does not look that different than the overall graph, with the majority of expenses coming out of salaries and benefits. And one of the things we've done in 2021 is really add to our full-time staffing pool. The goal is to reduce the amount of overtime we rely on for our operations. In planning, the significant portion of the cost here are those capital projects. So like I said, planning does include most of the design and engineering work that is done on our capital projects. A lot of our staffing time that come out of planning are charged to those capital projects as well. For Coconino County, you'll see the largest slice of pie is in maintenance and operations, and this is because we contract with Enterprise to provide our van pool service, which falls into a directly related maintenance and operating cost. There's some small salary time attributed to management of these programs. And that's everything that I have on the annual report, but I'd be happy to answer any questions. We will have the full narrative report available in the TAC and board packets that are coming out for the November meetings. And we will be able to address additional questions if they should so arise before those meetings or at those meetings.
Thank you so much for that excellent report. Board Do we have any comments, any questions for our general manager?
Madam Chair, this is Steve Peru.
Yes.
Again, thank you to the staff for providing the information on the expenditures and revenues. Of course, looking forward, we're always looking at what the trend lines are related to not only local funds, but also federal funds. And so, just credit to the staff for helping us be mindful in terms of, as I said, what the trend lines might be looking like in the future. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, well, thank you so much. We'll move on to item number 5, our financial update. There has been a slight change. We will look at the legislative update, the transit tax update, and fare capping. So I believe that's also you, General Manager Dalmolin.
It is me. I started to walk away.
You must be exhausted already.
Sorry. So thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. What we wanted to do today is just provide a brief update on 3 very important financial matters. As Director Prue indicated, it is important to always consider our trend lines, and we'll be bringing more information next month on those. But specifically today, we want to invite Bob Holmes from Nexus Consulting to provide us with the legislative update. Bob does do, he is our legislative liaison in DC and is a great partner in our pursuit of federal applications.
Great, thank you all. I wish I could see you all in person. I miss traveling to Flagstaff and seeing you all, but it's good to be here with you all today. I'm going to do a short presentation, and then I will open it up to any questions that you may have. And I'm just honored to be partnering with the City of Flagstaff, with Coconino County, and of course with Mountain Line and all of you to further public transit in Northern Arizona. So with that, Rhonda, we can go to the next slide. I just wanted, most of you guys know me, but I just wanted to give you guys a quick background. My firm, Nexus Consulting, we founded in 2011, and we mainly represent public interests and public entities in Arizona. In Northern Arizona, we're fortunate enough to work with not only Mountain Line, but Flagstaff and Coconino County. My partner and I, we have over 50 years of experience. I worked in Republican politics. I worked for Congressman Hayworth eons ago, in fact, in the last century. My business partner and good friend, Anna Ma, who I've known for over 20 years, worked for Congressman Grijalva, and she worked also in the Obama administration as chief of staff for the Department of Labor and the Small Business Administration. And unfortunately, she would be here today, but she's actually out on the campaign trail working today, so she is not. And we have represented Mountain Line, both in my previous firm, which was Landry Creed and Associates, and now Nexus, since 2009, and we've helped to push about $50 million in federal grants and ADOC grants to the system. So we're really proud of our partnership, and it's a tribute to how good the staff is at Mountain Line that we've been able to achieve so much. So with that, we'll go to the next slide here. And some of the recent awards you guys are all familiar with, but wanted to go through this. We've gotten $6.7 million for the Downtown Connection Center, or as we like to call it, the DCC, $2.2 million for articulated buses. There was a time, I believe it's, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's Route 12 that goes out, that we are leaving up to 1,000 people at bus stops. And so we really needed these articulated buses. So this has helped to alleviate a lot of that. Obviously, we've gotten 2.7 for on the Casper Drive and $1.4 million for campus bus storage. More recently, in December last year, before the pandemic, we received the nation's largest grant, nearly 3 million for construction of the downtown connection center, as well as electric buses. There are 7 other communities around the nation that received this maximum grant, but we were really proud and overwhelmed to get this. And obviously, with Rio, the new Rio to Flag project, hopefully getting finished in the next several years, this is going to be a great attribute to Mountain Line. And then finally, we worked really diligently in the CARES Act that was passed in March of this year to get, as Heather alluded to in her presentation, about a little over $7.2 million to help alleviate the effects of the COVID pandemic. Obviously, there are still huge ramifications of the pandemic on public transit, and we're working hard to alleviate those. There's talk, and I'll talk about this in a little bit, there's talk about another COVID/stimulus package where we could see additional funding for transit, and we continue to work really hard there. So let's go to the next slide here and talk about FY 2021 appropriations. As you all know, the fiscal year begins on October 1st. As is typical, Congress hasn't even sent one bill to the president. In fact, we haven't sent all of our appropriations bill and started our fiscal year on time since 1992. So this is not untypical, it's more atypical. Unfortunately, that's not a great way to run a business or a government, so we're unfortunately running on a continuing resolution. The current continuing resolution expires on December 11th. That obviously will be in the lame duck session. And a lot, frankly, is dependent on what happens next if we pass another continuing resolution, or if we pass the appropriations bills and send them to the president on what happens in the election. If the Democrats win control and Biden wins, I don't think the president nor the Democrats in the House and Senate will let any bills go through. And if that's the case, they'll likely pass another continuing resolution through early next year, probably February is what I'm hearing, and then let the new Congress and the new administration deal with some of those things. If we see a status quo election, I think we can probably cut a deal sometime in December and get the appropriations out fairly quickly. In the unlikely event that Republicans win, they probably won't want to make a deal either, and we'll likely see that. So the only real scenario that I see passing a bill funding the government for the year is if we have a status quo election. So we'll likely be running on continuing resolutions into early next year. So with that, we'll go to the next slide because something really important happened in the continuing resolution, because also the FAST Act, which is the current surface authorization bill, expired at the end of September, at the end of the fiscal year. The CR included a 1-year extension of the FAST Act. So that will include current authorization levels for this fiscal year. So it's not the best solution, but it ensures that we have authorization for funds through 2021. So this was a huge deal, because if that had expired, it adds a lot of uncertainty in the transportation world. We are now looking at 2 different proposals that we got in the House for the surface transportation bills. They were trying to work those out before the end of the fiscal year. Unfortunately, they didn't. The The House Invest Act is really a huge all-encompassing bill. It not only includes surface transportation reauthorization, but it also includes some climate change legislation, and it also includes ports and rural broadband. So it's an all-encompassing proposal. It's about $1.5 trillion in total. About 500 billion, 484 billion to be exact, were related to surface transportation. The Senate bill, called the Senate American Transportation and Infrastructure Act, contained about $287 billion for transportation. So there's a disparity of about 200 billion, very significant. Again, a lot depends on the election about what we will see with regard to the final number. If Democrats take control of the House, Senate, and the White House, I think we'll see something much closer to the Invest Act. If the Senate retains control, I think the baseline will be the Senate bill, and it'll probably stay closer to that 287, maybe up to maybe potentially 350 billion dollars for surface transportation. But some of those extraneous items, such as climate change and broadband, may be pushed aside to deal with in different committees. So with that, we'll go to the next slide here. Reauthorization is critical for NAPTA and Mountain Line. Some of the things we've been working on include a stick increase to small transit intensive cities, which are measures, and Mountain Line has done very well on these in the past. We've gotten either 4 out of 6, or more recently, we've gotten 5 out of 6. And each measure is worth a certain amount of money, as you guys know. And we're working on authorization to increase the current 2% stick set aside under the 5307 program to 3%. Both the House and the Senate bill have the stick increase to 3%, and that means $500,000 or potentially more to Mountain Line each year for those stick measures, which is obviously, it can be used for capital or for maintenance. So it's really, the money is really fungible, and it's been very important for Mountain Line. So both bills have those. If you recall back in the 2010 authorization, 2015 authorization, we were successful. Our Congresswoman at the time, Ann Kirkpatrick, who sits on the Appropriations Committee, increased the stick set aside under 5307 from 1.5% to 2%. And now this 2% to 3% would be big. So, we are cautiously optimistic that that will be there, and we'll continue to work with our Senate and House partners. Senator Sinema is a sponsor of a standalone bill with Senator Moran from Kansas to increase from 2 to 3%. That was really the baseline that we put in the bill. We've got great support from Republicans and Democrats. In our own House delegation, Congressman O'Halloran is a strong supporter. Congressman Stanton is a lead co-sponsor. He also sits on the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. Congressman Gosar has been a strong supporter of this, as he sees this as a merit-based program. So we've got really strong support for STIC. So I think we're really in great shape there. Some of the other things that will be that we've seen increases in the will be in the 5307 programs, the 5339 no-low emissions, and other transit programs. So transit has really been pushed aside, quite frankly. In the 2010 authorization, we started to claw back a little bit in the 2015 authorization, and I think there's a real push. And we've got a lot of supporters in Congress. and quite frankly, in the outside organizations. We've been working closely with Nicole Christus and others at APTA, Scott Bogren and others at CTAA and the Bus Coalition, which is run by Ed Redford, to coordinate messaging and work on these increases, and we've been making tremendous headway there. So I'm really confident that we will see a good reauthorization that will be very positive and see substantial increases in programs that are important to Mountain Line and frankly, all transit agencies. So with that, we'll go to the next slide because we want to talk a little bit about COVID relief. In the last COVID relief bill, the CARES Act that was passed in March, there was significant money, $25 billion for transit. That's where we got our $7.2 million to help keep transit running during the pandemic. The House bill has passed another bill called the HEROES Act. That was about a $3 trillion bill in May. The Senate bill has been languishing. They can't come to an agreement, but the closest they've come is 52 senators supported the $650 billion HEALS Act in August. But in the Senate, as you know, you need 60 votes to get past the filibuster. So that bill did not get a final vote. Although I'm not optimistic, House Speaker Pelosi and Treasury Secretary Mnuchin are in ongoing negotiations. They talked for an hour yesterday. They talked for an hour. They're supposed to talk for an hour today. The current House position, the Speaker's position, is about $2.2 trillion, which is significantly less than their $3 trillion. And the current White House position is $1.88 trillion with some escalation clauses, as I understand, that will get it close to $2 trillion or a little above that, which is significantly higher than their latest proposal, which was $650 billion. Again, I'm still not optimistic that we're going to cut a deal, but they continue to talk. But I will also add the caveat that there will be another COVID relief bill. It's either going to happen in the lame duck or it's going to happen early next year. The problem is many transit agencies, many communities are hurting right now, and it would be better to get some of that funding out there before it's too late. So I think a deal is not likely now, a deal in the near future is. So with that, we'll go to the next slide here. So what could be in a COVID bill that could be helpful for communities and for transit? The House has proposed $25 billion more for transit. They included that in the HEROES Act. More recently, they've said that we really need about $36 billion. APTA, CTAA, and the Bus Coalition have joined and said that we really need $36 billion. So there could be potentially additional funds for transit, depending on the bill we get. And of course, obviously, there's still a need for additional funding for testing, education, and loans, unemployment insurance, and the PPP program and small business programs. Another thing that's been important for you all on this call is funding for state and local governments. The HEROES Act contained just south of $1 trillion, $986 billion, and the Senate bill, the one that came closest to pass, contained zero. The Democratic line has been that communities are hurting and they need sales tax to make up for lost sales tax and other things because of the pandemic. The Republican line has been that this shouldn't be a bailout of cities that have not used their funds wisely, and we can't go along. So, but I do think there's a deal in the offing. It's still one of the major hurdles to get a bill completed. Speaker Pelosi has come down to 486 billion. Secretary Mnuchin is up to 300 billion. So I think a deal can be worked out here if we get there. So there will be money for state and local governments. I'm almost certain in a package. The question is, how much will there be? And I think it's going to be between this $300 and $500 billion figure. So with that, we'll go to the next slide. And I will say thank you all very much. It's been great to partner with all of you. And I'm happy to answer any questions about any of this that you may want to pose. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Bob. It's good to hear your voice. Please give Anna a hello from all of us. I certainly do appreciate all the work that you've done for Mountain Line and continue to do. I have a question about that HEROES Act. You know, it seemed as though, and I'd like to know your perspective on this, that the money came in, but it came into the state, and then the state was unwilling to share the entire amount with the municipalities. Is there something that we can do in the next round that would guarantee that it would come to the municipalities?
Council member, Dad, first of all, I miss you. I miss seeing you. And I wish we could even see each other on this Zoom call, but I digress. That is a fantastic question. And I'm glad you raised that, because I should make this clear. No one liked in the HEROES Act the way they disseminated the funds. And frankly, this is the law of unintended consequences. Treasury, the Secretary of Treasury and the Treasury Department is not a grant organization, so they don't have a lot of grant administrators. And so they thought the best way to do this was just to get the money out to the states and let them deal with it. We have since now learned, you know, our governor only dispersed about 55% of it. He got 1.8 billion and only disseminated about $1 billion. So one of the first things they did when we went to the second round was we asked, and we went to our senators and we urged them to disseminate it first of all, in a direct allocation and allow for more flexibility. I think one of the things that frustrated folks originally too is that you could only spend the money on pandemic related items, testing, and other things. And I think that frankly frustrated a lot of folks because, you know, a lot of the local communities said, well, wait a second, we have lost revenue. We want to put money into our transit system and we want to do other things with those monies. So we need a direct allocation and we need this flexibility. Both Senators McSally immediately jumped on this cause, as did Senator Sinema, and frankly, all our delegation. That is not going to be a problem. The money will be directly allocated in this next round with the added flexibility to use it in whatever way the communities see fit. So if it's lost revenue, the communities will be able to use it for lost revenue. So it's going to have that added flexibility, which I think is so important for communities because each community is frankly different. I mean, you can't do a one size fits all for this and say you can put money here, but you can't put it here. I think it's important for the cities, towns, and counties to be creative with these funds. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you so much.
Madam Chair, this is Scott
Yes.
Holcomb.
Yes, Scott.
If I may jump in on that too, one other issue was once that, and I'm sure from the city side you've seen this, once the money did come into the state, putting it into the general fund the way that the way it was distributed from the state to municipalities also put a lot of potential restrictions on how the money could be utilized. And so as money comes in, if any money goes to the state or how the state handles it, that's also a very important issue as to, you know, how it's put out, because you run into issues like the gift clause and other things that caused unnecessary complications in how the municipalities could utilize that money.
Thank you for pointing that out, Scott. Mr. Tressler, do you have something you would like to add?
Yeah, it's not quite on the subject, Madam Chair, that you're talking about, but Bob and his crew for the help in getting the $17 million. You know, we have not seen as much success in other places during this climate in obtaining grants to help with things like flood control, and so for NAPTA to be receiving this grant is just huge. And I know, Bob, some of the work that you did behind the scenes really helped the success in this, and I really appreciate all the work that you do.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. We're going to get you your flood control stuff too in the county. Rest assured.
Directors, anyone have any comments they'd like to make?
Madam Chair, this is Steve.
Yes, Director.
I guess a general comment is, you know, just given all of the what ifs and the could be's and who knows what will happen that we just heard on the federal front, it certainly is challenging to plan ahead. So again, I think it's going to be one of those moving targets with regard to what we will be receiving from in terms of federal funding. It's good to know that we have certain commitments for funding for projects, of course, in operations as well. But again, I just think that the next year or so is going to be really kind of tentative in the minds of many. Thanks.
Absolutely, and that was my point in the beginning, that even though we have become stronger, we certainly are part of the nimble, flexible gang, which connects us, I think, a little closer. So thank you for that point, Director Peru. Anyone
Chair
else?
Whelan.
Yes.
Hey, this is Vice Mayor
Vice
Shimoni.
Mayor. Yes.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. Good to be here with you all. Bob, I just want to say thank you. It's good to hear your voice, and we really appreciate all your efforts and all the successes that we've experienced with your support. So just thank you for the update, and thank you for all your work, and definitely send our regard to Anna. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I appreciate your support, and I want to let you know that I've been riding my bike a lot during this.
Yeah, atta boy.
Okay, anyone else?
Madam Chair, this is Jim McCarthy.
Yes, Director McCarthy.
This is probably not the place for it, but Bob, I would be, well, I mean, we're interested in multimodal transportation. So I would ask Bob to maybe send us an email, at least to me and anybody else that's interested, on what's going on Amtrak. And you know, a lot is going on Amtrak, most of it negative. So Bob, could you maybe send me an email, an update on that, and I'll share it with people that I know would be interested.
Yeah, Councilmember McCarthy, I'd love to. Let's talk offline, and you're right. There's not a lot of good happening on Amtrak, especially with our with the long route lines, and especially the Southwest Chief. They're cutting them down, and frankly, I get the feeling that they never want to bring them back, even though they've said they would. So we continue to press them on that, and again, let's talk offline. Please call me at your convenience, and let's discuss it more in a strategy.
Thank you, Bob.
All right, thank you. And just a little you said, I think is of probably interest to everyone on this call, just to know that there is an effort to get rid of long distance trains.
Yeah, which will
talk offline.
Impact us all in many different ways. Is there anyone else that would like to make a comment or a question for Bob before he leaves?
Yeah, Jamie, it's Art.
Yes, Art.
Yeah, good morning. I just want to extend our appreciation, my appreciation on behalf of the jurisdictions you served here. You know, transportation is one of the things you all just do really, really well with Anna and yourself. And it shows year after year what you bring in and where you go and the relationships you've built. So I don't want you to do anything differently, because what you've been doing has worked and served Northern Arizona incredibly well. So I just want to recognize the skills and relationships you bring that allow us to be more effective. So thanks, Bob.
Well, thanks, Supervisor Babbitt, and I appreciate your kind words. And I really want to say, and I know you're giving us a lot of credit, and we do a lot of work back here. But frankly, who deserves all the credit is the staff of Mountain Line, the staff at Coconino County, and the staff at the City of Flagstaff. They all do tremendous jobs. And the reason why we're so, and frankly, the supervisors and the council members and the mayor and all the electeds, when you make that commitment to come back to DC and to do that, and it's going to be a little bit different next year. We're probably going to have to do it by Zoom, but it shows how important and how visible you want to be seen. And that means a lot to our congressional staff and our congressional members. And I think the advocacy and the commitment by all of these involved has been the reason why we've been so successful. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, then we'll move on to our transit tax. Again, thank you, Bob. Please give our regards to Anna.
Will do. Thank you guys so much.
All right, so I am going to move into our transit tax revenue update, and I apologize for the error in the agenda setting, but this was really a time for us to talk also about transit tax revenue. We'll be doing a more in-depth review next month as part of our budget and first quarter report, but wanted to briefly share with you a quick glimpse of how the transit tax projections have changed since last spring. So the slide in front of you, the $35 million, is what we were showing could be achieved in revenues from fiscal year 20 through fiscal year 2025. Again, that was pre-COVID. When we came to you during the budget cycle, we had our first projection of recession numbers from the City of Flagstaff, which showed a change in tax collection over the same period, reducing the amount of tax we could collect by over $1 million. In September, I received an update from the city that changed that conversation and in fact resulted in a plus up of $421,000. So that $421,000 is actually more funding than we were projecting to achieve in that time frame pre-COVID. And I will just add, I just opened an email from City Finance and they have upped that number by another $80,000. So we are now showing that the transit tax projections are that we will have $500,000 more in revenues than we were projected to have before COVID even started. So that's great news if we can in fact do that. And I know that the numbers do change rapidly and things can happen that could alter this picture. As Bob mentioned, we did receive $7.2 million in CARES funding that we have been using to pay for operational services so that we are reserving the transit tax revenue for future year needs. And then we do have about a almost $500,000 loss of fare revenue because we were fare free from March through October. And so that CARES Act money is going to be really important to help fill that shortfall. But my purpose today was really just to provide you with a quick glimpse of where the transit tax revenue is projected to be based on The September numbers is what's on the screen. And like I said, I just got a more recent update with the October numbers that bring it to a change of $500,000. And I'll pause briefly to see if there's question or discussion on these projections.
Thank you very much. Directors, anything? Anyone on the TAC?
This is Steve Peru. Just a comment that, certainly does, I think we were expecting different kind of news, but this is good news to receive. So thank you.
It is good news, isn't it?
Very good. Kind of scratch my head like, okay.
But it might change tomorrow, so we'll see.
Yeah, that's true. It's still a moving target with everything happening.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, thank you so much for that. Transit revenue. Fare capping.
So as I mentioned just briefly, we are showing a fare loss right now that we're able to cover with the CARES Act. But part of our ongoing conversation about fares is what do we do next? So one of the reasons we want fare free is because collection of fares requires, in some cases, up close and personal contact between our operators and our passengers. So as we went through fare free, we took that opportunity to, again, look at what are the options. One of those options is to go to a mobile fare solution, mobile ticketing solution, that would allow someone to basically prepay their fare in a mobile app and then use the app when they board the bus. There are several strategies to doing that. We currently have several period passes. We have a day pass and we have a 30-day pass. And we're hoping that both of those can be introduced into this mobile ticketing app. But what I wanted to show you is oftentimes when you introduce something like mobile ticketing, and we are evaluating whether we could add fare capping to our existing stored value card solution that's being introduced, is it allows a rider to receive the same benefit of a period pass, whether they buy it up front or they pay as they go. And so in the top table under current, if a rider in 30 days rides 22 work days and does 4 trips per day, assuming that they go to work, go to lunch, come back to work, and go home from work, they would pay $110 if they're paying cash one-way fare every time they board. If they're buying day passes for those same 22 days, they pay $55. And if they buy a 30-day pass, it's $34. But we know oftentimes with many of our customers, it's not reasonable to have that $34 on day one to pre-buy their pass. So under a fare capping scenario, that rider would pay $34, whether paying one way every time they board, buying a day pass every time they board, or buying a period pass. And the way it works is when I board on day one, if I spend that full, I'll go with the day pass example because the math's easy. If I pay $250 today, I will continue to pay $250 until I reach $34. And once I've reached that $34 equivalent payment, the rest of my rides for that 30-day period are free. I paid for them because I get the benefit of that 30-day pass no matter when I achieve that payment in the period. So the fare capping idea really offers equal access to our discounted fares for period passes to all riders, no matter if they prepay or if they pay as they go. An important consideration is that you can see it saves the rider money, but that will impact our fare collection. And so that's the work we're doing now, is to try and understand when you introduce fare capping, how does it impact your fare collection so that our board can engage in that discussion and give us direction on introducing fare capping. So I wanted to just briefly share this with you as a glimpse of some of the work we're doing on our fare structure and fare programs. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, General Manager. Any questions or comments?
Chair Whelan, this is Adam. That's just incredible. And I'm very, very excited about that. And I think that our riders will be very pleased to hear this too. And and just bravo. I'm really excited about that update.
Thank you. I do have a question. So are we concerned at all at this point? Will it reach our entire population that we are currently, I mean, does it leave out anyone when we go to fare capping?
So our goal is to reach everyone. So obviously when we talk about mobile ticketing, we potentially talk about an unbanked customer having challenges with accessing mobile ticketing because it does require some sort of payment to a third party, right? So I think about it with Starbucks, right? You have to go in and you have to buy that card initially, and you have to have a way to quote deposit the cash onto that card. So what we've put into our request for proposals, because we are going out to bid for mobile ticketing, is that we need a solution to ensure unbanked customers can access the mobile ticketing solution. And then what we want to be able to do is ensure that we add this to our TAP card system as well. So with our TAP card system, they could come in potentially and pre-deposit increments of $5 or more onto their TAP card and still achieve the fare capping as they ride the bus. So it is important to us that we introduce something that is equitable and accessible to all of our passengers.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else?
This is Jim McCarthy.
Yes, Jim?
So interesting, if a person had some kind of card, I guess they'd be given a card, it would probably look like a credit card and they could just use it. But it occurs to me that they might share it with their friends. So you might have like 3 or 4 people using the same card. And all of those people would get all these rides for $34. Is that something we've thought about?
So let's stick with the TAP card specifically. That could exist right now. We have a passenger comes in, they buy one $34 card and their entire family of 4 shares that card. That is an existing flaw, if you will, or risk to the way the pass system is designed. I have used the phrase, and I have staff that quote me, it is an acceptable amount of fraud. It will be more costly for us to chase down that user than it is to provide this benefit to all users. With the mobile ticketing solution, there are a lot of things that we can do to actually prevent that from happening because it's based on your login on your device. It doesn't allow it to be on multiple devices. There are visual validations that we can use to ensure that it's not a photo of the pass, but an actual live pass. So there are things actually going to mobile ticketing that reduce that risk even further than our existing TAP card system.
So would this system require a person to have a iPhone or something like that?
Yes, if somebody wanted to participate in the mobile ticketing solution, they would need to have a smartphone where that app would reside. We are not planning to replace our TAP card system. So I want to be clear on that word. We want to have both systems in place so that riders without smartphones can still use their existing fare solutions, but we want to introduce fare capping into those TAP cards if possible so that those riders have the same benefit.
Thank you, Heather.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Good conversation. Anyone else? Okay. Can we move on, Heather?
We can move on to strategic plan. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I hate to say it, but do you need a little break? Okay, strategic plan, Heather Dalmolin.
So I'm going to give a brief introduction and then staff are going to help me with this item. Thank you for recognizing I've been here for a little bit.
Yes.
We wanted to provide a strategic plan update as part of today's advance because we thought it was important to talk about that plan that was adopted last spring. So since last spring, early winter, we adopted the strategic plan under our prior general manager, Erica Mazza. And we have been reporting on that plan since then. We have identified a couple of things that we would like to address. So we found that the adopted goals and objectives are accurate for our long-term success, but identified that the timelines of the task are either unrealistic or not broad enough. So for example, we identified that we would have a public funding partnership, private partnership in place by the end of 2020. And that even pre-COVID was probably unrealistic. So now we're proposing that we include a revision to our strategic plan to update our projects and tasks, not our goals and objectives, along with our 5-year transit plan, so that we can align those two projects to set of objectives. We also want to be sure we identify and adopt key performance indicators, which are currently missing from our strategic plan. In the meantime, we'll continue to use the adopted strategic plan to provide updates on a biannual basis, talking about those tasks and other tasks that we complete to support our goals and objectives. And with that, each staff member that you can see on the screen is going to give a brief update on some of our goals.
Thank you so much. Kate?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to talk about goal 1, which is service excellence. And under service excellence, we have 3 specific objectives. I'm not going to go through all the bullet points under each of the objectives, but just give you a high-level overview of some of the things occurring. So our first objective is to deliver service enhancements that are in line with the 5-year transit plan and make transit an attractive choice. And we just heard Heather talk about some of the customer-facing technologies that we're currently pursuing and will continue to do over the next couple months. We also, you may have caught during the current events last time that we received a $300,000 grant from the Community Transportation Association of America for our on-demand demo, which is also under this. So we're very excited. That actually gives us the funds to do the demonstration project of an on-demand technology. And then the other item I wanted to point out under this one is the Milton CMP, the Corridor Master Plan, has been a reason we have been moving slow on the BRT. The CMP is close to making recommendations for what would happen on the Milton corridor. And I'll just say at this stage, it doesn't seem like the transit improvements that will be proposed are significant benefits to Mountain Line. So we'll be back next month to talk more specifically about how to move forward with the BRT project. Under number 2, investing capital to improve efficiencies and infrastructure to enhance service delivery. The Downtown Connection Center continues to remain our number 1 capital priority. We're very excited that things are really kicking off. In fact, we have our first stakeholders meeting next week, and that's with some community members. It's in your updates as well if you want to read more. But as the project kicks off, obviously risks start to occur as well. So we'll be back next month also to talk about some of the challenges on the DCC, as well as how things are going well at this point in time. And then other capital projects, as Bob mentioned in his presentation, the many grants that we've received continue to move forward in the planning and design phase. The Caspar intersection project is slated to be delivered next summer. The final objective under this item is to improve community partnerships and interagency relationships to enhance transit. And some of these have worked and some of these haven't. Things at the DCC continue to progress really well. We're talking with human service agencies downtown, the police department about space with those, maybe other city services. And then Heather and I also want to be back in the next couple sessions here to talk about potential changes to our service delivery outside the boundaries provision that other agencies can make, asking for assistance from Mountain Line based on some lessons learned in some of the partnerships that haven't panned out. So overall, things are going great on service excellence. I can pause for a moment for any particular questions, and then happy to move on to goal 2.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? You know, I have one, Kate, and it was kind of lightly touched, but again, it's that ADOT plan that we're in year, I think, 4. And I understand that there'll be a full discussion next month. But the idea of them coming back with a no build seems ludicrous to me, because of the main purpose was transit. So I just want to throw that out there so we could begin thinking about that, and maybe what else we can do to foster that. So thank you.
Yes, we look forward to that discussion. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board, those in the room and those who are not in the room. Jim Wagner, I'm the operations director, back from vacation and Daisy Fresh. Want to talk about the goal 2, that's a stewardship of resources. One of the things I wanted to talk about is that we are responsible for public investment and must care for that investment. One of our many objectives is to manage public investment to develop and implement a transit asset management plan using available software that fits our needs. In this case, staff has chosen a software solution called TAC to manage all rolling stock and fixed assets. Facilities has been using the software for a few years now, with much success. And currently, the fleet department is transitioning all maintenance records to the solution because of its ease of use and functionality. There's a lot I could probably cover here, but because of time, I think we'll just say that there's more to come at a later date. Another objective is to adopt a low and zero emissions bus technology for fleet replacement and expansion. Planning is currently working on a zero emissions bus transition plan with CTE, the Center for Transportation and Environment. You should see an implementation plan in December. So more to come on this one here too. So these are things we're currently working on, very high level. We're doing an awful lot out there, but with respect to time, we'll move on. I just want to point out that we did have 2 electric bus demos in the past 6 months. Rather challenging to invite guests to observe the tech, given the environment. It's kind of hard to social distance on a bus, and I didn't want to take a chance inviting people from all over the community here. The 2 bus companies that did come in were Proterra and New Flyer. Proterra, interestingly enough, is a power storage company that is getting into the bus business, making buses. And New Flyer is a bus company that's actually getting into the electric bus business. Both perform very well and are eager for our business. So we'll see what comes down the road here. With that, I'm just going to go ahead and move on to the next, unless somebody has any questions.
Anyone have questions?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, Jim.
Thank you.
So this is Danelle, the HR manager, and I'm going to move on to goal 3, investing in Mountain Line's workforce. So Mountain Line completed its compensation study in FY 2020, enabling the operations staff to receive an average of 4% increase and the open range non-exempt staff to receive an average of a 3% increase. Currently, HR is evaluating benefit options to help reduce costs, increase supplemental benefits, and educate employees so that all staff see the value in Mountain Line's total compensation package. Mountain Line continues to improve programs for recognition and rewarding staff for their hard work in achieving the organization's mission and vision. The operations group of supervisors and leadership had attended a professional development training over the past 3 months. This additional training will enable Mountain Line to move towards a coaching and mentoring environment. The operations division expanded full-time positions from 40 to 48, which allows the organization to reduce overtime dependency and improve work-life balance. Mountain Line has merged the lift and line operators into one job description, providing flexibility and improved service efficiency. Mountain Line continues to work daily to successfully meet the training and development needs, cost reductions, service efficiencies, and building a workplace culture that supports the work-life balance. So does anyone have any questions?
Comments?
Well done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Danelle.
Thank you.
Okay, Jackie?
Madam Chair, this is the one that we had in the reverse order. So it'll be Jim for enhanced safety culture and then Jackie for outreach.
Okay, thank you. Jim?
Good morning again. Jim Wagner, Operations Director, Goal 4, Enhanced Safety Culture. The idea here is to establish a safe working environment and safe delivery of service. COVID has sidelined many of our objectives. It's pretty lengthy, but only briefly. Staff focused on developing safety measures for our employees and customers. We had to really work hard together to establish new goals and objectives to maintain social distancing and safety on the buses for, like I say, all our employees and customers alike. I just want to gloss over some of the things that we've done through the different divisions we have here, such as facilities, for instance. As part of the regular maintenance, they are spraying a sanitizer solution as a finishing product to cleaning bus stops. They're going to the connection centers and are sanitizing at least twice a day or once a day and more as they can. This helps keep down our COVID issue we have out there. Currently, offices are being cleaned once a week by professional staff. What they'll do is they'll come in and they'll vacuum, they'll wipe down all the surfaces, windows, things like this, touch points, at least once a week in all offices. And currently right now, they're coming in every night and they're taking care of the hallways, emptying trash, maintaining touch points and things like that are in the facility. And as of late too, we can see an occupancy sign that are being displayed to remind staff of safe limits in meeting rooms and others. So for instance, this room here probably has a safe occupancy, meeting all the requirements, CDC requirements of probably, what is it, Sam, 12? 11? Okay, it was close. I read it, but forgot it. Fleet, we hired touch point detailers for the downtown connection center and also to finish cleaning buses here in much detail. At the DCC, we wiped down all the touch points in the passenger areas on the buses using a specialty sanitizing solution that works very well there. And then at night, before every bus goes out, they are deep cleaned. That includes the driver's area, passenger compartment area, and then they are sanitized with the sanitizing spray that we have. And also, let's see here. Fleet developed a security door. In fact, I'm really excited about this as part of the reopening plan requirements. How do I get to the PowerPoint? Okay, so I just briefly wanted to bring this up and show you, we have a very talented fleet department and I'm pretty impressed. Early on, we said, hey, what's it gonna take to reopen and make it safe for both customers and our operators on the buses? And it was evident that we needed to have a security door developed or purchase something was on the shelf. Doors that you purchase on the shelf could take up to a year to get, 18 months from what we were hearing. They were of okay, I think, design, but costing upwards between $5,000 and $7,000 we were finding out. So what the fleet department did was they put their heads together. They identified a way to put in a security door. And you can see here that they've taken some raw materials and it really was a backup napkin type of a design. And they made a prototype and we decided that this is the way to go. So you'll see that there are some raw materials here. They welded things together. We have a metal lower, as you can see there in the upper left. We had these prefabricated for us, and then they welded on all the infrastructure to it. And on the far right, you can see almost a finished product there. And here they are putting together the rest of the doors. They're putting in the security glass, which is 1/2-inch plexiglass, which we found out was much cheaper to buy than the 3/8 because of supply and demand. So we manufactured it for the 1/2-inch. And here's a finished product. You can see that on the left side over there is the door in the open position, and on the right side is the door in the closed position. What's nice about this is while we were still boarding from the back of the bus, once we installed the doors, the staff could lock it in the open position and it could act as the security barrier. And then while we're boarding today, front door, they lock the door in the closed position, which gives them some security and germ-free access. So, and here's a picture of our staff that put that together. Any questions?
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. And please thank your staff.
I will certainly do that.
What are our drivers thinking about it?
Yes, drivers, there's some mixed feelings there. They actually are kind of excited, to say the least. They see the need for the security door, and many are feeling comfortable with that. There are some glare issues that they're concerned about. But I want to point out that this is phase 1 of door development. We're actually checking out a new window that's actually made from safety glass that might reduce the glare down a little bit more. So more to come on that. Yes, you bet.
Yes, Mr. Bacon agrees with you. So thank you so much, Jim. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Anyone else comments?
I love it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Jackie?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board and TAC. So goal 5 is about community engagement. And this is really one of our more outward facing goals, which is definitely one of the more challenging ones during the time of the pandemic. So we've been doing our best to make progress on this while also knowing that a lot of these things are going to need to be pushed a little bit until things are normal or adapted to our new normal. So ensuring an active participation from a supportive network of stakeholders. This is really about engaging the community and maybe groups of people who don't necessarily ride the bus, but we need them to be supportive of Mountain Line. One way that we've really worked on this over the last little bit is by reaching out to all of the city and county candidates and sitting members of the Board of Supervisors and City Council who are not up for re-election, and giving presentations about Mountain Line. Really, it was designed for those candidates who may end up on our board. As we know, we will have some changeover in our board makeup with a couple of our board members cycling off. So we really wanted to reach out to some of those candidates to let them know about us, as if they are elected, they may be asked to serve on our board. So we've, I believe, completed 12 of those presentations over Zoom to our candidates, which went really well. Even if they are not successful in their endeavors to get elected, having that information out there is still really positive. And then as far as increasing the community's awareness of Mountain Line's value to the community, obviously everything that we're doing during COVID is part of that. Really, the messaging has changed. It's a lot about safety and what we're doing from a health perspective, but it's still keeping Mountain Line top of mind, all that incredible work that Jim just mentioned that our fleet team did. This one is a lot about engaging in community events, which there are not a lot of, but we've kind of got a little creative. There was obviously not a real Festival of Science. There was a virtual one, or a Science in the Park event, which is one of our biggest events that we participate in every year. But we did a virtual Science in the Park for Mountain Line over Instagram, where we posted photos of all of the different technology items on the bus over a series of many days. And it received quite a bit of interaction, which was fun. Also looking to the future with community events. We have done a little bit of a restructure, or we are working on doing a restructure with our front desk. So the front desk position has really solely been a customer service and accounting position, helping out with accounting as well. We're going to transition that over to my team of one, so now be a team of 1.5, to help out with more community engagement. So it's going to be customer service first, but also helping out with some of those community events. One of our limitations in participating in events when events actually happen is humans. We don't have the manpower for it. So having some more help with that and having someone who can be out in the community doing more will really help. We also have things upcoming. Kate had mentioned in her presentation about the DCC. There will be a public outreach component to that when we get a little bit further down the road. We're also working on a strategy to be more involved in boards and commissions. So really trying to make that tie between transportation and things like housing and climate change, things along those lines. So really trying to, whether or not we have a seat on those commissions or boards, making sure we have a presence. And then lastly, working on that transition from NAPTA to Mountain Line for all of our outward facing things. And we've accomplished quite a bit. We've accomplished a lot of the low hanging fruit, letterhead. IT has worked on, we now have email addresses that say Mountain Line instead of NAPTA, things along those lines. There's some larger projects that are more fleet involved with, changing over our paratransit vans to be Mountain Line paratransit instead of Mountain Lift, that are a bigger lift that we will be working on. Obviously, our fleet department, as Jim just showed you, has been quite busy with other things. So we will work on those as time allows. And with that, I'm happy to make any questions or answer any questions, excuse me.
Thank you, Jackie. I think that's an excellent idea of the boards and committees and commissions. So thank you for that. And of course, everything else that you do. Any comments, questions for Jackie? Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Goal 6. Heather, are you up and running?
I am. Got some water. Okay. I'm good to go. So
great.
I'm going to wrap up the strategic plan update by talking about goal 6, which is really about our fiscal responsibility. And as we look at ensuring a sustainable financial future, one of the projects that we really have been working hard on is our strategic investment plan, which will help us with those financial documents, tying out capital improvement plans, financial planning, and service planning. Right now, they all happen kind of in segregated efforts, and this will tie them all together. We're very excited about that, and the timing of it will tie into that 5-year transit plan that we're working on. As we look to diversify our funding sources and reduce dependency on federal funding, I have to just acknowledge that CARES Act made that not very attractive, because that federal funding was awesome to help us in last fiscal year and in the coming 2 fiscal years. But long-term, we continue to look at ways to diversify those funding. And one of the tasks that we identified under this objective was related to our EcoPass program. In our climate right now, our focus really has not been growing EcoPass, but maintaining EcoPass. So there's just been a small shift for us, but we will return to ways to expand those EcoPass programs in future years as our financial picture in the community starts to stabilize. That said, we do continue to pursue ways to develop private partnerships, especially as related to maybe the BRT system and that connection to the airport. And then of course, we just talked about fare capping and fare strategies, which again, those are all part of those different funding sources that we could use to replace federal funding. As we look to expand Mountain Line's revenue resources for the full implementation of the 5-year plan, as you all are aware, we had that conversation early this spring, determined 2020 wasn't the year to go to the ballot, and that was pre-COVID, which I think, really we're all very grateful that we made that decision. We continue to look at, when do we go back? Is it 2022? Is it 2024? And of course, the transit plan update that we're working on will help solidify what are we really asking, what is the right and appropriate goal of that funding strategy. And then I just want to acknowledge that we continue to work with the Arizona Transit Association on a potential ask of the state to fund transit. So again, Arizona is one of 4 states that does not fund public transit. And we would like to be part of the move to change that. And then we do retain our membership with national organizations. And as Bob mentioned, those are all very helpful when we're doing things like going to our representatives in DC to ask for their support of our grant applications or of even reauthorization. So that's a very brief update on the fiscal responsibility goal. I'd be happy to answer any questions before we close out this item.
Thank you so much, Heather. Anyone have any comments or questions? Well, clearly our timing on some things was perfect. So I'm glad to hear that. So thank you for all your work. And we'll move on to item number 7, consider the purchase of a 5-year transit plan. So the way this is going to take place is we will have an overview from Busy. We'll take a 15-minute break and then we'll have breakout sessions. So Busy, you want to take it away?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Busy Collins, Transit Planner. Today, staff is recommending an update to the current 5-year transit plan. And I'll provide key points from the plan that was adopted in 2017 and reasons why staff think it is timely to update the plan. Then we will break into small groups to hear from the TAC and the board. And then we will finish with a summary of feedback from the small groups. And during this presentation, I welcome any questions you may have prior to our breakout sessions. So a key choice examined in the 2017 plan was frequency and coverage. And a good example of this is shown on the screen, and this comes from the 2017 plan. The background map shown on both of these images is a fictional area that is requested to provide transit service. And there's 2 different ways to provide that transit service. The gray lines here are the roads and the dots are where the people are. And so both maps include 18 buses, but choose different ways to provide transit service. The map on the left focuses on frequency by concentrating service into 2 routes that generate the highest ridership. People have a longer distance to access transit along these 2 routes, as you can see from the various dots throughout the square. Yet buses arrive so frequently that people don't need to plan their trips around a bus timetable. The map on the right prioritizes coverage, and all the people have a short distance to access transit. Yet a bus arrives probably infrequently. It could be as infrequent as once per hour, not knowing exactly, this is a fictional example, but less frequently than the example on the left, definitely. And this would require, the example on the right would require people to learn a bus timetable and plan their trip to make sure they arrive at their destination on time. The limited arrival times may also increase a person's travel time if bus connections don't line up between the various routes A, B, D, etc. And public input guided a decision by the Mountain Line Board of Directors about how to balance frequency and coverage goals in the plan. The board directed staff to maintain all existing coverage so that no one would lose access to the service they ride today. The board also directed staff to focus any future funding on increasing frequencies and increasing ridership. A second key point from the 2017 plan was the permanent transit network pictured here. And it's a set of corridors on which the agency can make the strongest commitment to service. And these corridors are highlighted in purple on the map. Development, street improvements, and transit priority projects on these corridors will do the most to help Mountain Line deliver efficient and high ridership service in the future. The permanent transit network is Mountain Line's contribution to the ongoing conversation among transit planners, land use planners, developers, and private organizations about how and where the city should have transit-oriented development. The final key point from the 2017 plan was a future funding scenario shown here. Based on the board decision to focus any new future funding on increasing frequency, the plan identifies frequencies according to corridors. So the various colors shown here are pictured in the legend in the top right. So red is the highest frequency, proposed to be every 10 or 15 minutes. And you can see that's around Milton. So that definitely includes the proposed bus rapid transit route on Beaver, San Francisco, on Milton, looping around Woodlands Village, but also our existing Mountain Link Route 10 going through NAU campus, also a portion of Butler. And then it increases frequency, or rather decreases frequency, as you go down the list. So purple is every 15 to 20 minutes, blue is every 30 minutes, and green is every 60 minutes. It also includes a route extension along West Route 66, which is the blue line on the left side of the map. It's proposed in this map to go to Woody Mountain Road. And this map also identifies potential future routes through Ponderosa Trails neighborhood to the airport and on future roads of J.W. Powell and South 4th Street, which are indicated by the dashed lines located on the bottom left and bottom of the screen in that map. And please just note in this map that the frequencies are identified. However, the routes that would provide those frequency and what that route network might look like is not identified and was somewhat absent from the plan, leaving staff to just try to fill in those blanks as we saw during our tax prioritization earlier this year. In 2018, an initiative was placed on the ballot to achieve the future funding scenario previously shown. However, the ballot question to increase the transit sales tax did not pass. However, at minimal cost and within the existing budget, the plan guided Mountain Line to split Route 7 into 2 routes, Route 7 and 8, and increase the frequency on new Route 7 from 30 minutes to 20 minutes. And we do see on this map, Route 7 and 8 are still indicated by the purple line. So Route 8 is that far left loop going around Thompson and Woodlands Village. And this was the split of Route 7 and 8 was implemented in 2019 and has been successful. And it also set the stage for the future Route 8 extension along West Route 66. However, we are still at that current termini at Thompson. Staff is recommending an update to the 5-year transit plan one year earlier than scheduled for the following reasons. First is the fact that the transit tax didn't pass. Feedback from a survey of no voters suggested that the initiative wasn't specific enough to support it. As I mentioned, it identified frequencies. It didn't exactly identify routes and how that all worked together. In the event of a future tax question that is on the ballot, Mountain Line needs clear messaging on how additional funds would support growth scenarios. And should the board seek a tax question in 2022, the timing is optimal to engage the public throughout 2021 and update the plan, and can use this effort as a launch pad into a voting year. Second, demand for transit service continues to increase within city limits, but beyond the transit watershed due to land use changes and development of major destinations. Also, COVID-19 drew attention to some isolated transit-dependent groups that lack quality access to the existing system. Staff need direction on how to support the diverse transportation needs of the community we serve in a no funding scenario as well as a future funding scenario. Third, there are complementary modes that can improve access to the Mountain Line transit system, such as on-demand microtransit, walking, biking, and bike share, and van pool that may be more effective and efficient than adding new fixed routes. And staff need to plan need a plan that places transit within an integrated transportation system that supports travel patterns in a cost-effective way. Fourth, Mountain Line needs to engage the public to ensure that this integrated transportation system makes sense to the public and to prioritize service scenarios. Public engagement is also needed to better connect the role and value of transit in achieving community goals such as affordable housing and climate action. And finally, this effort can guide staff in identifying and setting key performance indicators and goals for Mountain Line's strategic work plan for the 5 years following, as our general manager and CEO has previously described. And I will just briefly comment that Mountain Line does not believe our bus network is broken. It's very much that this plan would update and integrate all of these modes and all of these future plans. So not a major overhaul, but really optimizing the system. And I'll just pause briefly there for any questions.
You know, I think it's going to be perfect timing for this update and leading into the question of a ballot question in the future. You know, it's with changing the climate action and adaptation goals to 2030, I think this is a perfect opportunity to offer these solutions to our community and let them know that these are solutions to those objectives, and we will give them opportunity to use this service. So I think it's perfect timing. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So shortly, we will break into small groups to hear from the TAC and the board on whether this effort is supported, and if so, to ensure the scope of work is complete. Staff are also seeking any recommendations on what went well in the last 5-year transit planning effort as we engage new board members in this plan update. And then just following today, we are looking to the board for decisions as we move through the process. This is an unbudgeted item, and it does require additional board decisions along the way. So just wanted to provide an outline that we will be coming back to the board in November to approve an application for a grant, a planning grant. And we do anticipate hearing back about that grant. It's an ADOT planning grant. Hearing back from them in December. We would anticipate releasing the RFP in December as soon as we hear from them. And then we will be back to the board in January, hopefully January, if not January, February, to seek board approval of that contract and execute funds. And then we will be engaging the board in March once this, if and when this process kicks off, to ensure we are getting correct direction as we move forward in this plan, as we communicate with the public. And so with that, I'll just briefly describe what's going to happen next. So we will be getting into our breakout sessions. We will have a 15-minute break, so coming back together around 11. And within this Zoom meeting, so the same platform that you're looking at, invitations will be sent to you to join the breakout rooms. And so please join. I understand there's a selection that needs to be made, so accept the join in the breakout room when you're ready, close to 11. And you may turn on video during that breakout session. We'll have a 30-minute discussion. We have staff has questions prepared, but we are looking for all feedback. And then following that discussion, we'll have a 5-minute break for everybody to rejoin the large group, and we will summarize what the small groups discussions held. And just a reminder to please turn off your video before re-entering the public meeting around 11:35. Great, and with that, we'll go break. Yes,
Thank you so much, Busy. Does anyone have any questions about the transitioning into the breakout session? Okay, if not, we'll look forward to the invitations and meet back here at 11 o'clock. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You don't care where I go. So. Did you send a sign on? No. She should have at 10:30. You got it? Or you wanna do- Oh. Yes. Thank you. Okay. I'm sure she will.
Hey, Josh. Hey, Shane. Good to see you.
We were told not to have our cameras on, so.
Well, I'm a rule breaker, so.
Yes, you are, Vice Mayor, and we all know that. I've known it for almost 10 years now, but.
At least, yeah.
Never to the doorstep, Artie.
You and Burger King.
You know, I wonder if this is what it feels like to be transported on Star Trek.
Oh.
You know, I don't know. Anyway, are we bringing ourselves back together? Smile, Jeff.
11:35, Jamie. Everybody had a 5-minute break.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
Now a 2-minute break.
Jeff, how are you? I feel like the saying of 2020 should be "you're muted."
Yes, I'm well. How are you, Vice Mayor?
I'm really good. Just having a lovely conversation. Things are good.
Great.
Adam,
Hey, Jim.
we'll leave our camera on during this informal part.
I know, right? No rules. Yeah, there she is.
Oh, no.
There.
Well, at least Sterling's not on here. Jamie's not as mean as Sterling.
Jamie, I want to say you do an excellent job at chairing and bringing us all together and driving us forward. And I just really appreciate your leadership. And you two are muted.
Thank you, Adam. You're very kind.
True.
Okay.
I
Let me know
agree.
when we're ready. I think you put that up for me. Thank you. Well, hello, everybody. It is now 11:35, and I'd like to bring us back together. I certainly hope you had wonderful conversations like our group did. And Busy, are you going to guide us some more?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll just lead in the summary of our small group. So in our group, we had Jim Wagner, myself, Councilmember Shimoni, Stephen Peru, Kurt Stahl, and Aaron Stom. And we had a great discussion and some key points that came from the group. There was definitely a lot of agreement with staff's reasons for wanting to update the plan now rather than later. Really overall, I think making being prepared for the ballot was one part. Holistically, how do we make the sale of a transit tax increase? Should we be going in 2022 or 2024 for a tax increase? And really making sure that people see the value of transit, making it more attractive and making it easier to ride transit so people can leave their car at home. And for the balance of frequency and coverage, our group really did agree that it's still right for Flagstaff, that we need to focus on our core and ensure frequency is prioritized. that if we start looking at other areas in the city, the airport was brought up as a goal that the group would like to achieve service to, and in some fashion. So, you know, maybe that's a couple times a day, maybe it's not a regular service, but looking at coverage in our within city limits, the airport came up, and then thinking of coverage outside of our city limits, there's a lot of, everybody agreed that there is demand, and it would be great to enable people to connect into our very frequent core system. And maybe there's park and ride opportunities, definitely bikes and walking, making sure that we're investing in our pedestrian and bicycle system, and connecting our city, our MPO, our various partners to design streets in a way that really supports that multimodal connections into transit. And another couple points, there was support for exploring a tax increase as part of this plan, and really the connection for people to the values and community goals and how transit can be part of that solution was a real big point of agreement. And within our group, so the question on were there aspects about how the board and TAC were involved in the last planning effort that we need to do again. Aaron and Jim were the only ones who had participated, and really just bringing back to the group what had been done, that they started with a blank slate to understand what was ideal, and arriving at that frequency decision point, and maybe just presenting that and asking the new board if they need to do that process again, since it was so comprehensive. And specific outcomes, if we delivered this project successfully, there was a lot of needing direction and information for the transit tax, that there's a timeline associated with services, so continued direction throughout that plan, and that we have strong community buy-in, a strong marketing campaign, videos, social media, making sure we have strong online components to complement in person. And that's the summary from our group. I'll let somebody else go next.
Thank you.
This is Kate. I'm happy to go next.
Thanks, Kate. Would you speak up a little bit?
Yes, is this better?
Yes.
Okay, great. So my group had members, Mayor, Babbitt, Dilly, and then we had Rhonda Cashman and Brianna Fimbres, our Montoya Fellow. And we talked mostly about the shelf life of a plan. And the key question here is really that in 2022, that's a really big question mark of what the economy will be like, what other initiatives will be on the ballot, because a lot of things were deferred this year, and whether transit would be timely in 2022. And if that wasn't the case, would a plan still have a good shelf life in 2024, or would we essentially have to go back and redo some of our work? And so we actually didn't make it through other questions. We focused on that most of the time, talked about the potential to do small bits of the plan that maybe had a long shelf life now, but wait on some of the other items until closer to a time when we would make a decision about a transit tax. And just, I think it was a really great conversation, hitting some core questions about the timing and ultimate purpose, really focused around the fact that, you know, without additional funding, Mountain Line can't do much at all, if anything. And so the purpose of a plan is really about, tied to that funding, need for additional funding, and what we would do if we had that available. So any questions on my group? Okay, next I'm going to call on Anne.
Greetings. Thank you, Kate. My group was Heather Domelin, Chair Whelan, Member Okoli, and Christopher Tessler with the county from the TAC. And I apologize, I'm trying to see my notes. They concurred that this is a good time actually to start 1 year early on the 5-year plan. Ideally, they actually think the plan should be in place before the end of the current 5-year. So the timing is right for all the reasons I think that have already been mentioned. We kind of jumped into the balance of frequency and coverage discussion. Chair Whelan identified, sees the growth in our outside areas of our community, the bedroom communities, asking for service. And, ideally, she probably would like to see a balance of the frequency and coverage, and that the timing of this type of discussion with the 5-year planning process the timing is good with the climate action plan discussions and the integration of multimodal transportation into our network. One of the key items they think could be really important as part of the 5-year plan is that the population really needs to be better educated about transit, how to use transit. Even when we have bus stops, people don't often know how to access or use the bus. They also recommended, definitely as part of the 5-year plan, is coming up with a priorities list based on funding. So providing tiers of funding options and vetting those through the 5-year planning process. One of the other key areas is about the balance versus frequency and coverage is that although you might potentially extend for new coverage, you only have one chance to make an impression. So you really have to be cautious about offering enough frequency that it's still considered valuable rather than just adding some modest coverage. So exploring that aspect through the 5-year plan. One of the other key elements about the frequency versus coverage was looking at our current areas and are they well served, and really evaluating that service. Is there opportunity to add more frequency in some of the areas we're already serving, or rebalancing the coverage? And I believe that captures that question. We really got into more of the discussion of should the 5-year plan start to identify a future tax recommendation, and definitely the concurrence was yes from the group. With some guidance on definitely tying the need for transit as part of the climate action emergency, and that transportation is the largest factor impacting greenhouse gas, and how important Mountain Line, how transit is important to the community to get on board, and doing that as part of the 5-year planning process itself. I believe Chair Whelan said inviting the public to do their part from supporting the tax to riding the bus. Let's see, I am scanning some more. One of the key elements too was keying in on looking back at the prior initiatives that did not pass, that we didn't have enough specific details. And so this future ballot question should really clearly identify what the public will get for their funds. And again, using the 5-year planning process to vet that. Compiling really good financial numbers should be part of the 5-year plan for the federal and local, and blend that into the tax question. Also developing as part of the 5-year planning process is having that also develop an educational strategy for the tax question. And I believe one of the other key elements the group discussed is not purely focusing on just a tax, that exploring other funding options should be part of the 5-year planning process. And then as part of the question about how, involving board and TAC in the 5-year plan, Chair Whelan and Dr. Coley were not on the board in 2017, but their comments were that Mountain Line should keep doing what they're doing, that they trust staff to bring forward key recommendations. In other words, if there's a big picture pivot left or right, as they said, bring forward what the recommendations are, and then get board and TAC feedback and direction for those inflection points. And then using and I believe the final parting comment was gathering a list of stakeholders through the 5-year planning process to help build momentum for, a future ballot question. Did I capture that, Heather?
That was great, Anne. Thank you.
Okay.
And then Jackie, your group, I think, is the last one.
Hi, and this is Estella. I took notes for our group, so I'll share. In my group, we had, Jackie, Councilmember Jim McCarthy, Julian Thomas, Jeff Milbeck, and Kevin Parks. And so with the first question about reasons for doing a 5-year plan, overall, there was definitely agreement that we should be pursuing a 5-year plan. And then we kind of dove into more of the details of, frequency versus coverage. But another point I think for doing the 5-year plan was kind of analyzing sort of ridership trends and demographics pre-COVID versus post-COVID. So if there's kind of been any changes with those items, so such as like running errands versus commuting, kind of seeing those different patterns. And so for the frequency and coverage, again, overall, it was that we shouldn't go backwards with frequency versus coverage, but so to kind of stay on frequency, but definitely keep an eye on future growth and making sure that we're tying it up with future planning. So making sure, so just basically re-looking at sort of different growth and future planning and making sure that any sort of expansion or coverage, making sure that those align, as well as with kind of bike and ped access is incorporated with transit. And so, right, so for coverage, just kind of looking at the neighborhoods that maybe do have some potential for high ridership potential, and just making sure that, any sort of coverage changes, just making sure that, again, they do have some potential for ridership. And overall, there was definitely a big difference between, 60 minutes versus 30 minutes compared to maybe like 10 versus 15 minutes. The 10 and 15, maybe it's not as much of a big deal, but definitely the 60 minutes versus 30 minutes would make a big difference in a neighborhood. As well as some of the results from the upcoming Mobility on Demand project. Kind of the outcomes of that, seeing if that could be an option to serve neighborhoods and kind of meet some of those coverage goals. There was definitely discussion about new development along Butler and if, potentially adding frequency to that area. But overall, again, not wanting to go backwards on frequency, but definitely wanting to just, keep an eye out on future growth. For certain areas that should be served, the airport was brought up, same with Fort Tuthill, JWP, as well as with the Lone Tree Bridge, kind of how that might change some of the bus routing. And just, again, responding to development as well. So then moving on to the tax question. I think, again, overall, the group felt like, we should definitely explore a tax option. But there were a few things that need to happen. One was kind of needing a local citizens group or some sort of focus group and really kind of listening to them. It shouldn't be so much that maybe Mountain Line staff is telling the public what to do, but more the citizens telling Mountain Line staff what to do. And that should start soon, just to really, again, create some feedback and momentum with a tax. Another step would be to get the DCC up and going so that, people can really see things happen and see progress in the community and really just show Mountain Line's presence a bit more. Overall, there was definitely agreement that we need kind of citizen involvement in order to kind of shape the tax. Another way, for a tax to be successful is definitely having sort of a grassroots support and having advocates. Compared to the 2018 tax initiative, that was kind of one thing that was kind of lacking or never really got off the ground, especially in this unknown economic climate, really having people that can say, vote yes, compared to just Mountain Line staff just being able to educate the public. And as well, so some information for the tax it'd be helpful to know, if we do not choose a coverage option, just being prepared to say why and kind of educating the staff on that. It could be a challenge if there's 2 tax initiatives in the year. So for example, like with affordable housing and climate change. So potentially maybe partnering with climate change and transit, since there is a strong connection, to both housing and climate change. But the group felt like if there was more than, one tax increase that could hinder our chances of being successful. Yeah, again, many comments getting, feedback from the public. So, what does the public want, or what do the people want? What do our writers want? Again, really helping that kind of develop what a potential tax could look like. So we ended up not answering all the questions, but so from some of the specific outcomes, again, public outreach was a big factor. That was brought up several times, and potentially what not should be included. A member felt that routing is good, but may need some refining with the timing and making sure that connections work, but kind of overall the routing is pretty good, just maybe some kind of fine tuning. And there was a question, which Busy, feel free to answer afterwards, but just is the $200,000 budget appropriate? So maybe going into a little bit of that reasoning, that would be helpful. But otherwise, that is it. Anyone from my group that wants to add or anything that I missed?
Okay, if there's nothing else. Busy, I know that we're looking at the time. Excellent work from all the groups. Thank you so much. Busy, you want to wrap it up?
Yep, Madam Chair, that's it. I'll definitely, in the report next month, I will address that budget item that Estella brought up from her small group. And with that, I will conclude my presentation. So thanks for everybody's participation.
Excellent work, great presentation, so thank you. And now we're going to move on to some progress reports. Sam?
Madam Chair, members of the board and the Transit Advisory Committee, we won't speak on progress report items, but if you'd like this to be agendized in the future, we can. I will say this item will be a discussion item in November.
Okay, thank you. And anything else? General Manager?
I just wanted to, if I could, point out a couple of things on the summary of current events. We did resume front door boarding and fare collection this morning. Our office has actually been open for a week, and we've been very busy selling passes and reloading passes. So we feel like the public messaging that our marketing team has done has really reached the community that we wanted to reach. We are contactless on that fare collection, so we're offering the ability for visual confirmation, but the driver is not touching the passenger's cash or fares. Wanted to recognize and thank the Coconino County Emergency Operations Center, who donated 10,000 cotton reusable face coverings to Mountain Line. And we're currently in the process of pulling disposable masks off of our vehicles and replacing them with these reusable masks. Ridership is averaging about 50% of our prior year performance right now. A couple other quick bullets. We did order 2 replacement paratransit vehicles, and those should be delivered this winter. CYMPO, as you may recall, the board did approve a regional service request. They have now withdrawn that request. That's why there was no agenda item. They're actually working on becoming a direct recipient of federal funds and going to manage those funds independently. We will be holding our first stakeholder meeting for the Downtown Connection Center. It will be a virtual meeting on October 27th. And then also we will have a virtual public meeting on the Caspar intersection project on October 28th. Want to recognize that staff, Mountain Line did receive an award, a spotlight award from ASTA and ADOT on our community effort to work with the Flagstaff Food Bank on delivery of food boxes during the COVID pandemic. And lastly, We are encouraging staff and you, our board and TAC, to participate in both a pumpkin decorating contest and a Halloween costume contest. So if you're interested in participating, decorate a pumpkin of your choice and send me an image, or decorate yourself with your costume and send me an image, and we will be sure and share those results with all of you. And that's it for my very brief highlights of the current events. There's lots of other things in the report, but I wanted to pull those out for you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the current events and your reports, so thank you. Well, just a reminder, the next TAC meeting will be November 5th, 2020, and the next board meeting will be November 18th, 2020. So I'd like to thank the TAC, I'd like to thank staff, I'd like to thank the board for all their hard thinking today, and we're headed in directions that we should be proud of. And thank you for your work. And with that in mind, if there's nothing else, I'm pausing. This meeting is adjourned. Stay healthy, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.